Okay. All right. It says I'm live. Let's see if I'm actually live. Let's see if it's lying or not. Are you lying? Am I live? Are you lying? Am I live? All right. I'm live. Okay. Uh-oh. I'm glad we're capturing this. What, dude? My cat is howling. I have a howler monkey for a cat. He does that, and that's okay. He's a little old, and I think he has a bit of a hearing problem sometimes. So if he doesn't see me in his immediate eyesight or eye line, I think he gets nervous or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm here back on YouTube. I was trying to go on Facebook Live tonight, but I was doing some testing, and I was having all kind of technical difficulties up there. Couldn't get my audio to sync with my video, so and then my voice would come in, and like that. So nothing would happen it was just stupid. So yeah, I didn't want it to be stupid. So anyway, so I'm gonna work on that. I'm not utterly convinced yet which platform to use at all. And so we'll see. Otherwise, I'm actually also potentially thinking about um, about Instagram. While I'm here, I'm going to share this to Facebook again. Oh, just come on now. Okay, update. Here on YouTube. Come say hi. Okay, yeah. So, just making sure I'm still going here. Okay, yeah. Yep. So, I'm still going. Anyway, long process. Anyway, so here we go. It's about 9:30. It's close enough to 9:30 there, but like I said, this is a wishy-washy sort of start time. Anywhere from between usually 9:15 to 9:30. I'll do this, and just to remind everybody what I'm doing. So for the next, well, I started on my Friday night. So I was going to do a 30-day, nightly. Well, if it's a radio show at this point, it's a broadcast of some sort to nobody in particular, apparently, only to me and a few folks that watch it after the fact. But that's fine. But I'd love to see people kind of come online and chat live as well. That'd be cool. Anyway, so I'm basically out of work for a month, so I'm gonna just kind of do this for a number of reasons to kind of just rant and keep track of myself on a nightly and a daily or whatever, what's going on, and but also to get some potential resume materials for I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't think any of us do, and I certainly don't know about my future regarding my current job situation. Just COVID notwithstanding, I'm not getting any younger, and the kind of work that I do is it's a young man's game. I'm not a young man anymore, for sure. My knees keep reminding me of that fact every other day. So, to what degree I can do the kind of work that I was doing before and still do the job I'm supposed to do, well, that remains to be seen. But, going forward, I think I need to start looking at the potential for, retiring from that kind of area to something different. So the only asset I have, and it's not the big hairy one that I'm sitting on, is my voice. I've always had the voice. That's the only thing I feel I can really sort of lay claim that I have something. I'm lucky in that I've never smoked heavily, and I didn't get too much damage from the parents smoking their 6 packs a day between the two of them, and club all that live club work, and the years that I did smoke, the other stuff, um, yeah, other than cigarettes and doing little cigarillos and cigars and all that kind of shit. But I don't do that anymore. So anyway, that's that's partially, there's a number of, again, reasons I'm doing this. So other than that, I'm just talking to the air. I'm talking to the ether. I kind of like the idea of doing something every night. Just talking out, putting the voice out there into the ether. Now it's the virtual web land. It's not a radio, but it's the closest thing to radio I'll ever probably get to. I mean, and who knows, um, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of again, of a late night something or other. Um, so anyway, if there's anybody out there, I don't know if clearly you can hear me. I'm gonna put the vibe out. Put the vibe out. I put the tendrils up on Instagram and Facebook that I'm live and that I'm doing this thing. So like I said, people will show up or they won't. Um, I'm not sure what's going on there. Hang on. Clicked on something odd. Anyway, also just let me make sure that my chat is working. Hello. Yeah, my chat's working. So, yeah, there's a whole lot of nobody here, so that's good. um, anyway, and I'm looking at the number of people on the stream is two, both of which are me. One of which is the first stream, and then the second stream is my monitoring. So let's maybe get some other folks in. Who knows? So anyway, the other part of the idea is that I would come up with some sort of topic to talk about um, each day or night. Whatever moves me. Like the first night was kind of a test more than anything, just to see if you know it was interesting or not interesting, or at least if it would just it would work. Yesterday I talked about just my day and generally everything that I talked a lot about. So sobriety and how a bad day can kind of move your psyche into a funny place. Um, Today, you know, every once in a while I have these funny, weird things that happen, and I'm assuming that most people have the same experiences. Um, and they've been collectively called, things like deja vu, those kinds of things, things like missing time, or you know that feeling you get that like something is sort of shifted very subtly, or very not so subtly. Um, the idea that we live in a simulation, all that kind of stuff, and I know a lot of it's fanciful, and I know a lot of it's sort of, you know, I, I think the fact that people talk about it, and scientists who've really looked at that potential have said, well, it's 50-50 either way. It's like, okay, I mean, that doesn't say much really. All that means is that whatever we think we might be in, we might be in, but that doesn't mean anything, if there's no real proof. However, you know, things happen that just sort of like make me wonder for sure. So like today, I had gone to a drugstore just to get some stuff. Oh, that's the tea talking. Oh, by the way, it's again, it being tea o'clock. I have my tea. I have some celestial seasonings, tension tamer, and also the celestial seasonings, sleepy time with echinacea. So that's so I hopefully will be able to go to sleep a little better. I had not the best night last night. And yeah, I'm fighting with a malady, and makes it difficult to sleep. And sometimes, so not COVID. I do not, as of right now, knock wood, I don't have COVID as far as I know. Anyway, so one of the things that happened today, and it had been on my mind. So I go to a drugstore, and I just I had to buy a few things, and and I was just going to take a kind of a drive to somewhere else I needed to go, and and I think I've taken to Sundays. It seems seems to be falling into a pattern where on Sundays I just kind of take a little drive, grab a grab a beverage, and just kind of put Firesign Theater on, or some sort of audio something or other, podcast or book or whatever, and just drive. I get some pleasure out of that, and just a little bit of zen. Um, trying to avoid the flying ice off of people's vehicles. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But yeah. So so I have the stuff in the bag, and it was like, basically it was a little snack on the way. I was going to have a snack on the way back, right? So I go do my business. I go on the freeway, all this kind of stuff. So on my way back, I reach in to get my little snack, and I look at it and I go, "This isn't what I bought, or this isn't what I chose." I thought for real I had chosen one type of thing over another type of thing, and because I looked at it and said, "I want that thing." Uh, and like, I had bought two different kinds of things, right? And I reached in, and I picked it out of the bag, and I said, "That's not what I bought." Like, I'm sure of it. I'm damn sure that it's not what I bought. you know, and obviously, in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Um, I mean, but it was just one of those things. It was like, dude, and it wasn't even like an hour had passed. So it's not like this is something that happened within the space of a week where I would have been able to forget. Potentially, it's either that, or either that, or I'm getting delusional, and in my age, and starting to lose my marbles. I don't know, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. So, has anybody else had that same thing where you're just you go through your day, and you do a certain thing, and then in the midst of the day something changes, and either that thing you did or said or bought or whatever suddenly is different, or the circumstances surrounding it are different, and it's like, and it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It's confusing, and it doesn't make sense, and it's disorienting. um I've noticed it. I've learned to notice it, um to be aware of it, put it that way. When it happens, I try to make note of it. So it's not just things like that. So, but that's an example of it. So another example would be, um, you know, every once in a while, I'll be listening to something in the car, or I'll be just listening to something in general, and suddenly it'll just jump to a different part of the program, out of nowhere. Now, is that the cell signal kind of doing something funny potentially? Maybe, I don't know. Um, you know, but it just, like, it gives me pause, because it's just very strange and very weird when it happens, the way it happens. Um, I've so at work I've had instances of stuff like that, where you put something down, and you know where you put it, and then suddenly it's just not there. Like a tool or something that I need. Um, and it's just like, dude, and I just fucking had it right there. It was right on the desk. And then suddenly it's just not there. And, and I know we've all kind of done that. You drop your keys somewhere, and then you can't find them, or whatever it might, or your wallet, or, credit card, or something like that. Um, I don't, the older I get, and again, I don't know if this is just me getting older and stupider, and the more I hear other people's having instances of that happening to them, I feel like I see it more often, maybe just because I'm more aware of it, but I hear about it more often, that, if people just kind of going through these weird little, like, something happens, and they're just like, something's wrong, something doesn't make sense. Um, and they're usually subtle things like that. Obviously, it's not, at least for the most part, it's not like a situation where, you know, you you have a pet pass away or something like that, and then all of a sudden that pet is still there. That'd be a mind fuck, right? Excuse me. But now that being said, so we're talking basically about the Mandela effect too, as part of that. That people that so for me, there most recently with a public figure was Charles Manson, right? And so he passed away, obviously. Um, but I swear to God, it's like that I had read about him, and this would have been probably about a year ago, around this time, about a year ago, I think it was that he had passed away, right? And and it was in the news, and I read about it, and it's like, yeah, he was sick and passed away in prison and all that kind of shit. And then and it wasn't just a matter of how social media regurgitates things from a month later. And then suddenly it's like 3 or 4 months later, the headline came out, "Oh, Charles Manson died." It's like, "Wait a minute. This already happened. I'm sure of it," you know? And of course I can't find any proof of it. Um, so that happened. That was one of them. Um, I think that, there was another one that was recently like that too, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it was some sort of celebrity thing, where I swear to God they had passed away, and it was in the papers, and it wasn't like one of those hoaxes or anything. Um, but then come to find out that they no indeed were fine and still alive, and then had died. Then like they're actual. So it's like, okay, all right, what is happening here? It just feels like just again little things like that just um kind of push me more and more into believing that it on a on a very regular basis, and one has to wonder how regular it's always been, or if this is something that's changed. Our perception of time either shifting or being more aware potentially of the idea that, say, time, um, past, present, and future are all happening at the same time, which would potentially explain deja vu, um, which might, explain ghosts or something like that, or seeing things out of the corner of your eye or whatever it might be. Um, so like one thing that happened just like a little over a week ago. I'm leaving work, and it's dark out. It's light out, so but I have to walk to the parking lot, and I'm crossing the road, and I look, and there's no car there, so I start to walk across the road. And I swear to God, within a second, there's a car with its headlights like right there, like just about ready to knock me over. And I was like, "What the fuck just happened? That car wasn't there. It wasn't there." And I just like I said I just marveled at it for like a while. I said, "That car wasn't fucking there." You know? And so it's shit like that, and it's just like, all right, what is going on? So it would be curious to hear what other people have to say about that kind of thing, or if they what their stories are. You know, um, I think back to and it's funny because I think, like when the people talk about, like when they talk about stories, or stories about, like, say, things that have happened in the past, or the idea that, like, people that experienced the same event at the same time in the same place, but everybody remembers it very differently somehow. And that's a not only just it's a personal perception thing potentially, but is it a situation where something is shifted either in your perspective or their perspective, for that matter, and maybe there's more than one perspective changing at the same time, right? So in other words, my timeline is intersecting with another person's timeline, uh, completely separate from my timeline, if that makes any sense. But they're both communicating with each other, either in a parallel way or potentially in a cross ways. Um, it's the it's sort of like I don't I don't know what you would call it. I'm not very knowledgeable about it really, other than what my own brain tells me. Um, but just the idea that time, well, timey wimey, wibbly wobbly, the whole Doctor Who thing. It's like well, one has to start maybe thinking and believing and all that kind of stuff. Um, so like the current timeline that everybody's currently handling right now with COVID and you know Trump and all that. I mean, talk about a timeline that I don't think any of us were prepared for. I mean, um, one has to wonder, like, okay, why hasn't something? So, so one would like to think that we've potentially shifted into a slightly different timeline. I hope, but again, what does that mean? Is it am I just like projecting my thoughts onto a thing, because that's a little, that would be crazy, right? Um, but along those lines, so thinking about how time works for a person, um, when someone is thinking about their own history, um, especially in the way that I've been doing with therapy and stuff, trying to unpack, traumas and things, just the things that, for good or bad, informed my life. What how am I remembering those things in the way that is correct, right? And all I can do, and I think there was something that came out recently that, like, you're not actually remembering the event, you're remembering the memory of the event, which is interesting to me. I think it's interesting that you're not going back to the original tape. You're going back to a copy of that tape. It's like, with all of its potential anomalies. It's like, oh, that's interesting, right? And then I got to wonder, okay, so like as you remember a thing, as you get older, are you just now remembering a copy of a copy of a copy of a tape? Do you know what I mean? So like even the original memory of that thing you were trying to remember, say 10 years ago, is utterly different. You're remembering a memory of a memory of a memory. And I'd ad infinitum until you die, right? Until it gets to the point where it's like you don't, what is it you're actually remembering, if anything, that's correct about any event or whatever. Um, so that's this, this is the shit that goes on in my head, right? Um, Another thing that I think about often is also things like you know one of the things that I've thought about a lot recently is the genome and DNA and the idea that memory can be implanted or sort of ingrained in a person's DNA. So like not my memory, but the memory of my ancestors and my family and my DNA is imprinted with certain potential traumatic like things that just things that happened that shifted that DNA to such a degree that I'm potentially suffering from those um, events, even though I wasn't alive during them. When I have dreams of, say, when I dream a lot of water and flooding, and and I know a lot of that could be just the news of you know climate change and stuff like that. But I've always dreamt of that, even long before it was a thing in my head. That climate change was a thing. I've always had some sort of weird dreams, and I don't know if it potentially has to do with water. What you know, at one point when I was younger, there was one event in my life where I felt like I was drowning. It was, it was during some rough, like there was some people in water and they were playing with water and we were splashing each other, but I got caught in the midst of like, I don't know, just like too much, and it was just, it overwhelmed me, and I really got scared by it, and I felt like I was like drowning or something, and I never forgot that one. So I can't tell if that's a corollary or not, but so anyway, so I think of stuff like that, and I've had dreams where I've been shot. I've had dreams where I have been hurt or killed, and I got to wonder, okay, is that potentially some sort of DNA talent, or kind of replaying something similar to something that happened to someone in my family like ages ago or something. Um, there are some studies that have happened in England about talking about the DNA of people, and one of the points of these studies, and I don't have the information in front of me right now. Um, was that it had to do with people people's diet and eating habits and obesity and all of the things that kind of like a lot of people struggle with now. And this was actually, you know, the research that I ended up looking at was something that it was part of a class I was taking, which was actually a psychology class, and I was kind of rebelling against what the professor wanted me to do because it it what the professor wanted me to do didn't seem to have much of anything to do with psychology other than the fact that he was kind of pushing that whole Spartan, athletic, trip that people do where they go and they do these obstacle courses and all this shit, and it was like he was trying to make it. He wanted me to write about that in some sort of like, with a psychological bent, but it had nothing. It's like it had nothing to do with anything other than like, why is this a good thing for people? It's just like, and I kind of took the tack of saying, well, is it a good idea for people? Why is it just an idea in your head that it's a blanketly good idea for everybody? Because I don't believe it is. And that's the tack I took. So I I disregarded what he wanted me to do, and I went to do research about obesity and about people struggle with it, and I found some research that I thought was really very telling and very interesting. That the if you're looking at immigrants from Europe coming to say America or something like that, um, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, a lot of those people were starving. They were poor. They didn't have food. They were moving to try to go to someplace better where they wouldn't starve, like the U.S. at the time. So at the time, there might have been a bit of a hoarding mentality. So in other words, if you found yourself with enough food to, you know, whatever it was, you would hoard that food, and that way it would last as long as it would, etc. And that ends up being a traumatic experience in the genome, in the DNA, and it's literally like etched into the firmament of a DNA molecule, that like these traumatic events happening long enough and generationally just eventually imprint themselves, and that some people who potentially have problems with weight, like me, um, and a lot of my family, and it's not necessarily just because of overeating. Some of it is, but I think that there is a very subconscious thing happening that there, it's not just a state of mind. It's something that's happening deep within the DNA that says, "I'm starving," uh, and nothing triggers it other than you're between meals or something. Um, so, and with, the fact that you can go out and just get any kind of food any time of the day or night as much as you want, I think, you know, I think it would be something people would have found miraculous if it was, back in the early 1900s, right? So the research was actually finding corollary and real. It wasn't just theoretical either. They were looking at generations of DNA and chemical molecules and how things were changing and how it tended to work. Um, I, it was really complex research, and I don't think I may not have understood all of it for sure, but they were able to track a certain amount of like real kind of informational statistic that said this makes sense as not only a theory but as something that's potentially real. Now, if you're also talking about part of this research was that they were also looking at the genome and the DNA of of other animals like cows or elephants, for that matter. So the research says now that cows in the present are very, very aware that they are a food source for the human animal. They're very aware of it. And you know what I mean? They're not just dumb animals. They're very, very aware. The way that they feel it, obviously, or experience it, may be obviously very different than we do, but maybe not so much. They're very, very aware of what's in store for them on a large level. And again, that's something that's just happened generationally to their genome as a species. They're, you know, we hunt them, we kill them, we eat them, and have done so for hundreds and hundreds of years and centuries, etc. So their genome has learned through that experience that uh, that's their primary reason for still being here is that we're a food, they're a food source for us. Um, the the fact that they've actually seemed to have proven that elephants, again, looking at it generationally, looking at statistics of generations of these animals and these herds of these animals, are starting to evolve in real time. That they are being born, or they're the progeny of these animals are being born without tusks. So their DNA and their genome, again, after centuries of being hunted for their tusks, for the ivory, and being killed for that, the genome reacted to it and imprinted on it, and has slowly, intelligently evolved into the point where it's like, all right, this is a liability as part of our species, as part of our DNA, is having these tusks. So we're going to start evolving this so these tusks are no longer a thing. That's fascinating. They can see it in real time. Um, so all this leads up to me thinking that, like, any kind of thing that happens to us on a present in the present, if we are to have children going forward, one has to think about the consequences of that, not just for how the world is and the fact that the world sucks right now, and for people that have had children or are having children. I mean, they've got a harder road than probably a lot of folks, because those children are going to inherit a mess if we don't do something. But um, like the genome of my family have certain things and certain traits that uh, I don't want to pass along to another human being, without, because they certainly didn't ask for it. And it's like one of those things that I feel like I got from my parents, and I certainly didn't ask for it. But it's their genome is part of my genome, and so I suffer from a lot of what their genome was suffering from, et cetera, et cetera. And again, if some of that is handed down in some sort of weird imprinting code of past events in their lives and then their ancestors' lives, etc., I don't know. Um, all I know is that my proclivities and or mm, the genes and the bad and the DNA that I have that are bad, like the propensity for bad knees and arthritis and baldness, um, whatever it might be, anxiety. I don't want to fucking pass that along to a child. You know, how fair is that? Just because there's some sort of uh, I don't know, um, some sort of human imperative for me to procreate. Not really. I don't feel it. Um, I think a lot of that has more to do with ego than anything. The idea is like, oh, well, we want the bloodline to continue. It's like, well, I don't. I don't think the world is going to miss me that much, and I'm sure it's certainly not going to. I don't think it's going to certainly miss the DNA that much down the road. It's not going to matter. So maybe that's self defeating. I don't know, but all I know is that I would rather put my energy towards potentially adopting. If I was going to do something like that. I mean, I'm not in any position to do that right now, obviously. But if I were, if I had the money and if I had the ways and means to adopt, I would do that because there's certainly plenty of abandoned and disenfranchised children in this world that I could probably feel like I could at least help them somewhat with their own baggage. I don't want to create another human being out of whole cloth of my DNA with my baggage and then the potential baggage of their mother. Um, you know, um, I shudder to think um, if I had had children at the time I was, busier, shall we say. Um, I don't know, man. Those kids would have been a right mess, I think, because I was a right mess. I would not have been there for them. I would have done exactly what my father did to me. You know, so I think it would have been. I feel like it was advantageous I didn't have children. So that's just me. Again, no judgment on anybody else having children. I wish I felt differently about it. I don't. So all this sort of just leads up to what we perceive as real and what potentially isn't. So now we're getting into the areas, okay, what's real, what's potentially delusional. Okay. So it's knowing the difference between what is sort of reality and what isn't. You know, I think it's safe to say that it's a pretty simple equation. You know, if I look up into the sky and I see flying dragons around, I'm going to look around first and see if anybody else is seeing it. And if not, then I'm in trouble, right? Um, things like the current situation politically, and again, I don't want this to become a political rant, but it's a pretty clear distinction between what realistically happened and what people want to have happened, and the fact that they can't get over the reality of what happened, which is a sort of a sickness, a deeper sickness, that hard to say with where that is coming from. Whether that's is it economic? Is it environmental? Is it genomic? The people again is their DNA that sort of faulty that they really seriously think one thing is a thing when it clearly isn't to the reality of most of the rest of the world. So, wow, talking about all kind of, one person's reality can be so utterly skewed. Um, you can't make head or tail of it. And a lot of the time it's coming from people that are generally smart people. Some, not all, but some people that are I mean, they can fit a sentence together. That some of them are actual lawyers, some are doctors, and some of them are smart people, and they're just there's just one aspect of their genome or their DNA or their mindset that's just tweaked, you know? And, trying to talk to them in that regard to try to untweak them, um, and it's supposed to be a noble effort to try, but these days, I think people are stand their ground just that much more, especially if they're really on the outskirts of, like, delusional thinking. It's just too easy to fall into a delusional mindset thinking that one thing happened when it clearly just did not. Um, I don't know. And, a lot of times, again, this goes towards what we're seeing in the media and what people are experiencing, and I gotta wonder to what degree what person's mindset will have looked at something in the media, like a videotape or something, and then in their mind, they were able to actually alter what they felt they saw, and be completely convinced that what they saw was correct, even though to the majority of everybody else, it was clearly not. So, is that insanity? Is that delusional? Is it purposeful? Is it like, do they know what they're doing? Are they doing it just to be annoying? Are they doing it because they don't know any better? Is their perception so completely divorced from generalized education of a thing that they don't understand, like, just how things work? I'm not sure. And, people know my politics, so I know I'm not that I don't have a hell of a lot of patience for it, truthfully. I certainly don't suffer fools gladly anymore. I used to. But, I don't know. There's so much flying around that's so screwy that it's just hard to fathom sometimes where people's reality is. So along that same line of talking, well, a little bit going backwards, I kind of went on a tangent. So going backwards about talking about DNA and things like that. So talking about something like reincarnation, um, which obviously some Indian religions is something that's very real to them and to their religion. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm wondering if the reincarnation has something more to do with the fact that the DNA and the genome remember aspects of another person's life, thus maybe thinking that those people were reincarnated from another person. And even on a physical level, maybe that's actually true. That people may be remembering something that happened to an ancestor hundreds of years ago through the genomic, river. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Um, but it certainly gives pause when you hear stories of young children being able to recognize somebody in a photograph that was taken, like, 50 years before they were born, kind of thing. That kind of that you know that that's freaky stuff. um, but one of the things I've always liked to pose is like, all right, well, the idea of reincarnation is kind of just it predicates a linear timeline, right? That time is a thing that there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future. You know, excuse me, and that your soul or whatever is reincarnated from a past, something in the past. Um, but what if that's just not maybe that what if that's just not the whole story? What if potentially I'm the reincarnation of somebody in the future, right? Someone in the future dies, and they're they're they don't move forward. They're moving backwards. Um, why not? If time potentially is all happening at the same time, past, present, future, um, is there more potential that that's real? Uh, you know, so I don't know. It's like one of those things where somebody from the past that has real sort of like inventors, people that have invented very amazing things or miraculous things. One has to wonder. It's like, well, where did they come from? Where did those ideas come from? Was it something? Was it the mother? Was it a mother of invention kind of thing, or was it something that just came out of whole cloth from somewhere else from the future? You know, and I don't mean and I don't mean time travel. So that's a whole separate conversation. Um, but maybe that's where the idea of time travel even comes from, is that it's all within the DNA. Um, these are all fanciful ideas. These are all things I think about when I'm bored. um, but the fact that there's nobody here for a third day in a row, so I don't think anybody's interested. Um, you know, is what it is. Like I said, I'm just going to do this, and if people want to check it out, they can. I'm not going to sweat it if they don't. Um, it's also Sunday night, and I understand. I don't have to work tomorrow, but probably other people do. So Sunday nights might be, it might be something where on the on Sunday nights and weeknights, I might maybe do this earlier. I'd say like maybe 8 o'clock or something like that, and do an hour or something that way. If people were interested, they wouldn't think, this is happening too late. Um, well, I guess if nothing else, if people watch this after the fact and have any stories or thoughts or experiences with this, and I've heard some stories from some friends and things of like some things that they've gone through or have witnessed in their lives that um really gives one pause, right? uh it's not my place to repeat those things, but when you hear stories from people that you wouldn't suspect in a million years to even believe any of this stuff, like they're people that maybe are or have a certain very reality based sort of mindset, I think. And then suddenly you hear them talking about, kind of metaphysical happenings like this. And it's sort of like, whoa, okay, that'll give you pause to think. It's like, oh, okay. All right. It's not just me, just, you know, thinking these thoughts and having these experiences. Um, you know, So for me again, like I try to I try to on a day to day basis keep a. I just realized, just remembering one other instance of this that I actually caught on camera. So this would have been Christmas of 2018. Okay, so I had bought, and I was in 2018, so this would have been the first full year in my house. And, it's just me and the 2 cats at the time, and, one of which has since passed away. And he passed away, and it was like March 1st, of 2019. So it wasn't long after Christmas. So but anyway, so for Christmas, I had bought them 2 cat beds that I put near the sliding door in this room. When the sun comes in, it's nice and warm. Excuse me. And so I got it on video, and I got, 2 still pictures, right? And there's a timestamp on the pictures too, which is interesting to me. So I come home from work, right, and I'm looking to find out where the guys are, and I just kinda creep in, and I look into the doorway, and I see them both sleeping on their beds, in the sunshine, and just, living the cat life, right? But I got it on video because it's like, oh, I was happy that they're actually using their little beds and stuff, right? So, but I also wanted to get, a couple of still shots. So I took, one shot of the cats in the bed. And so, like, lefty's in that one and buddy's in that one or whatever. And I I swear it's like it was one of those things where I I I left the room ever so briefly and I don't know what to do, to drop my stuff or whatever it was. And then I came back into the room and the cats had like changed position. Suddenly, like Lefty was here, Buddy was there, and then suddenly I come back in and Buddy's there, Lefty's here. And but it didn't look and they didn't really, they weren't buddy buddy really. They were kind of like tacitly sort of like, yeah, okay, we deal with each other. So there was no, they didn't share a lot. So in my mind, it would not have made sense for them to have just all of a sudden to have made the decision to switch beds without there being a fight potentially or some sort of fracas, right? When I came back into that room, both of them were snug and comfortable, but had changed positions, and I caught it on I have it on camera with a timestamp, and it's only a few minutes between pictures. So I knowing my cats, there's no way they could have done that. There's no way, right? So, um, that's, I don't know, I find that pretty hysterical and pretty amazing. It's just like, okay, it's not just me here. When I see that kind of shit happen, it's just like, I mean, so if you want to talk other cat stories, right? So again, so I mentioned that my cat Buddy passed away back in March of 2019. So we're almost, so we're closing on almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in February, right, or March. And so last Christmas, actually, it would have been around this time last Christmas. During when he was still alive, I had bought this little toy, this little ball, but it lit up as like if it rolls down the hallway, it lights up. And they both. I mean, they both played with it pretty much. And it was, this is another one that I caught on video. And so and I'm at this point, I'm off work for the holiday, and I think, and I'm, making banana breads and I'm wrapping gifts and I'm doing the thing and I'm watching television while I'm doing this, and it's at night. And that little toy, that ball, like the only way that it works is if it's moved, like the lights work is if it's moving, like down the hall, it triggers the lights to go. So that toy was on the rug, sort of in front of the TV. And at one point I just noticed the lights going off and it's not moving. It's just sitting there. And it's sort of like my first thought was just like, that Buddy? Is that the cat? So just for shits and giggles, I start talking to it like, "Hey buddy, is that you?" And it would respond, right? It's like, "Oh, that's interesting." um, because at that point it would have been, it was the first Christmas without him, right? And so I turned the cell phone on and I start to videotape this, and I caught it. I caught it responding to me, talking to it. And again, it's not moving. It's just sitting there on the rug, and it's responding to my questions like, "Hey buddy, is that you?" You know? Uh so, it's a benevolent little haunting. And I mean, another thing that happened was, so, I when he passed away, I had still had my little Christmas tree and the lights around the window. They were still up from Christmas. I hadn't taken them down through January and February because I'm lazy. So those lights were still up. So, when I, had to put him to sleep, he passed away, and those lights, I kind of, I had kind of left them up, and I left them on. And I just sort of needed a little bit of that extra something. And the wind, so it was one of those things I thought about the lights in the windows, like the whole Rainbow Bridge thing, the rainbow colors. And it was about a day later. Well, it would have been. It was about a week later. Excuse me. It was about a week later after he had gone. And these are this was a new batch of lights, right, from Christmas. And I came in one day, and the lights had just blown up, or just stopped working. They were plugged in, but they just stopped working. So in my head, I took that to mean that he's okay. That Buddy passed over. You can turn the lights off now, right? So, and the little, again, the little ball, the lights that the little ball was exhibiting had the same kind of colorful Christmas light kind of vibe to it, right? So I have to think that there's a connection there somehow, some sort of weird thing in the ether, some sort of energy that and whether it's an energy that's manifesting as the cat somehow, or if it's something different. Is it my energy manifesting the cat? Um, it's hard to tell. It's hard to say, but it happened. And again, I got both of those things on, and I have proof of those things. Um, so this has been the metaphysical hour with Joe Auger. uh, but again, this is the shit I think about. He said to no one in particular. So, but so if you if you come to this later and listen, um, and you want to make comments or whatever, you know, well, again, I'm going to be trying to do this every night until I basically go back to work, assuming I go back to work. Um, just to see what happens, if anybody's interested or not. So, all right. So we're at about 57 minutes live now at this point. I'm gonna, I don't know. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Obviously, I'm not expecting anybody to show up, obviously, but I'll finish my tea. And think about what to talk about tomorrow night. I don't know. Like I said, I have plenty of things to do, or I can read from a book. I can read some poetry. I can talk about records and some music. I can talk about my production stuff. I can play maybe, but it'd be interesting what people would think they would want to be part of or hear. Excuse me, this tea's a little bubbly. I'm looking at a bunch of my notebooks that I found of my scribblings and scratchings over the years. Might be fun or funny uh, look through those and find some interesting bits. I'm sure there's plenty of it in there. Probably a lot of it inspired by some sort of drunken madness. Um, but who knows? Hey, if I'm potentially looking to get some new stuff working, then I may need to raid some of that old stuff. So, and we're down to 1 more minute. All right, I'm gonna give it 1 more minute. It's funny. I'm seeing 3 people viewing. So if there's somebody viewing, if you want to comment, go ahead. Say hello, because it ain't me. It says 1 person watching, but so maybe that is me. I don't know, but it says that there's 3 people on, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah, I don't know. But well, if I don't see anything from anybody in 20 seconds. Then I'm going to say goodbye for the evening, call it a wash, start again tomorrow, see what happens. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be on YouTube or Facebook. I'm going to try again on Facebook and see if something was just happening on the site that was just screwed up because I couldn't get it to work. I don't know. Oh, hey Ray, what's up? I was literally about to turn it off. Um, that's all right, Ray. I'm going to be doing this again uh, tomorrow night, and again every night through um, into January, if not beyond that, depending. So, but yeah, I'm going to end it tonight because I've been here for an hour talking to myself. But good to see you up there. Hopefully, yeah, we can chat tomorrow. Like I said, I'm not sure what I'll be chatting about, but yeah, you too, man. Stay safe. Obviously, we see each other up on the Facebook there. Uh, Under the assumption I don't get put in jail for something I've said, because that's happened a few times. All right, man. Yeah, I'm gonna close up shop for tonight since I've been doing this for a while. But yeah, come on by at some other point and we'll chat and tell your friends, and I'll try and get it out there, and maybe we'll get a few more people in to say hey and to start the process. Too funny? Yeah, it's all too funny. But again, like I said, I'm doing this to kind of who knows, maybe I get another career as a radio personality. That'd be interesting, right? So anyway, all right, dude. I'm gonna sign off. Take it slow. Have a good night. It's about 10:25. I'm gonna go and chill out for the rest of the night, and then I'm going to sleep. And then I'm gonna sleep late tomorrow because I don't have to be at work. Woohoo! All right, man. I'm out. Take it easy.